Some vintage pieces really do have a story to tell, and this one I'm sure has a long one. I saw this on Marketplace for weeks and weeks for free. I kept wondering, why is nobody picking this up? Well, first of all, it was very damaged. This top drawer is completely in pieces. I let it just keep going. I was like, am I really up for this type of project? It's a big one. But after a few weeks, I just couldn't get past the design. This double bow front just gets me every time. I contacted the seller and it was still available. So I called them and went over there and found out this had been abandoned in a barn for many years. They bought the property and they left it sitting there for even more years. And it needed some love. So I decided to take it on. I'm Shireen with Olive Street Designs, and I'm showing the process of furniture refinishing so you can learn too. Be sure to subscribe and follow for more. This was about 8 months ago. So I brought it home. I couldn't wait to get that ugly finish off the top. So I used my carbide scraper, scraped off that old finish, sanded it down, and I did find some damage to the front. When things sit abandoned, especially outside in a barn, no climate control, so the expansion and contraction of things sometimes just causes things to crack. It didn't have a bad crack, but it had an area that had delaminated on the top and just needed to be repaired. So I did a little wood filler on everything. Was trying to salvage as much as I can because I was still thinking that maybe I could stain that dark and blend in that defect. So I took off all the original hardware. I knew I was going to change that out because I feel like they're just too tiny. And I wanted to modernize this piece. Now I have to start on this drawer. The bottom of the drawer was completely delaminated. Everything had separated. So I was giving my best effort at trying to glue everything back together. And who needs more clamps? I probably don't. I have a lot. But the next day, when I came back and took all the clamps off, it still was warped and not going to be usable. So I used it as a template. I had another 1/4 inch piece of wood. I cut it out to the right size, sanded everything down, and then got started on trying to reassemble this drawer. I sanded all the parts and pieces to it. Thankfully, none of the other sideboards or anything were warped at all. But just trying to get a curved piece on the front to sit still long enough to get all the other boards on and the dovetails joined was quite a challenge. You'll see I have an extra even pair of hands in there. But we finally did it. I finally got it, and it works perfectly. You'd never even know. I did get it back together. Now I'm filling the hardware holes here with dowels. And I'm putting it in one, I break it off, and then I put the other half in the other hole, Bondo over the top. The dowels were really just to take up a lot of the space in the hole. I let it sit for about 8 months, and then somebody chose it out of my inventory in this state. It looked just like this, and she said, I want that. Okay, time to dive back in. So you'll see I put more Bondo here on the front. It just needed a little more help to blend in. I know that this is getting painted, so I'm going to go ahead and not worry about trying to blend it, but repair it. You'll see that was a pretty big defect. Taking out all the drawers, and I always number them. Vintage furniture wants to be back in its place. So I numbered all of them, then got to sanding. The finish is completely failing on everything. It's just pretty much peeling off, so I had to strip most of it off. The sides were actually in not too bad a shape. But there were some repairs to do on the bottom as well. So I flipped it over and got to work fixing all of the areas along the bottom with the veneer where it was peeling or was missing altogether. These great little sanding blocks are awesome for getting into areas like this that are rounded. Sanders just won't get in there. So I'm using mesh and a little rubber sanding block, and it just gets right in there perfectly. I had a lot of hand sanding to do because all the drawers had that. I discovered one area of the dresser that was broken. was just the little side panel was wonky or wobbling, and my great camera shot here of seeing nothing that I'm doing. But I used wood glue and then brad nails to set that so that the wood glue could set. And then I took this little triangular piece that I'm also gonna glue in there. You'll see these on the underside of furniture all the time, but it's just a way to attach the part on the side to the base. And I'm also gonna set a nice brad nail in there. If you could just see through my head. But the brad nail, it keeps it in place and sturdy while the glue sets. And then I found a few other places where the veneer was peeling, and that's an easy fix. Wood glue in a syringe is the greatest thing for this. I put some tape over it just to hold it in place and let that sit for an hour or so, and it will be good as new. However, the peeling veneer on the side, there was just no way I was going to be able to fix this because it was peeling in a lot of places. So rather than trying to glue the entire side panel back, I decided to just tear it off. But now I need to repair it all, so I'm going to be doing that with Bondo. I'm setting out large clumps of it, and I'm only going to mix half of it at a time. And then I have a Bondo spreader. I'm just going to go in and fill all that in. With these types of defects, it's, in my experience, you have to build them up. So you do a layer, and then you put more on, build a layer of sand, but you'll see that was all prepared. Time for a good cleaning. This probably hasn't been cleaned in, I don't know, 40, 50 years. It was pretty dirty inside, but got it all cleaned up. Everything is just so nice inside. I can't believe it for as long as it was sitting. Time to check out those numbers and get them all back in the right place. And now it's time to address that little space in between where the drawer meets the trim. And caulking is your friend in these areas. So I pretty much had to do all the drawers. And I'm just measuring where I am here because I'm going to be drilling new holes for hardware. Curved drawers are a little bit of a challenge to set up a hardware jig because you can't just measure straight. So I just need to find my center because there is a notch on my jig for center, and I just line it up with the center of the drawer there, and now I can do my holes. And I go straight in with the holes, marking the holes, and I'll go straight in with drilling them. Even though I'm on a curved drawer, you don't want to drill your holes on the curve because those screws need to go straight in. So before I do all of the drawers, all 8 of them, I thought I'd just test one out and make sure that everything was good with spacing. So here I am measuring the center of everything and marking it all with my jig. Go in, drill all the holes. And I'm using those adjustable screws that nobody uses. They are going to become my new temporary handles. Take off all the tape, put those in place, and you can paint, and that's a fantastic way to do it. This type of dresser and this wood is the poster child for something that's going to bleed. It's just loaded with tannin. So I went in with that cover stain spray first just to seal everything in. And then this is a traditional primer, which is my Insulex sticks. After that dries, I'm going to go in with the sanding sponge and just sand away and get everything nice and smooth. Clean it all off, dust it. And this is also a great time that you'll see any more imperfections, and I have a couple of little hardware holes that I need to fix a little bit more. Because I know that this is going to get a faux wood finish on top, I went ahead and painted the base on there. This is a hybrid beige by Farmhouse. I'm going to cover it up and then spray the body. That way when the body's finished and top coated, all I have to do is take the tape off and do the faux wood finish. I'm testing my paint sprayer pattern just to make sure I've got my settings right. And here we go with our paint color. Isn't this beautiful? It's like a gorgeous, moody, dark olive. This color is called 1905 Green by Magnolia Home. Now using those temporary handles, pulling everything out, and I'm doing the same on the edges of the drawers. Painting with the drawers in is fantastic. It's the best way to do it. No, they don't stick because no paint is getting in there. But you do have to go back and paint the edges of the drawers. So I primed them and then I put a couple coats of paint on them. And I like to do this in between coats of paint. So here's another coat of paint, just blending everything. Followed up by several coats of top coat. Oh, you gotta love spraying on top coat. Look at that sheen. Love it. Okay, once that several coats of top coat were all dry, time to unveil the top. I decided it was just a little too yellow. So I'm going to now put the tape and plastic over the body of the dresser just to protect it because I'm going to repaint it. This is great plastic and tape. It works so good. I'm repainting it with something a little more tan. And now I'm using a glaze in Java. I'm adding some Castle Stone, which is very gray. And I'm going to blend those two in a 4-to-1 ratio. 4-to-1, 4 of the Java, 1 to the Castle Stone. I'm using a 60cc syringe, but only going to 50. So I'm going to be putting in 200 cc's or mLs of Java. And so for 4-to-1, that means I need 50 of the Castle Stone, but I only have a 10cc syringe, so I've got to do 5 of those to make 50. So 200 of one color, 50 of the others, 4-to-1. Love this color. That's how it looked on my test board. It's brown with some gray undertones. I thought it was the perfect color for this green. I'm using a poly brush to put it all on here, and I wanted the inconsistencies to look like more of a wood grain rather than doing the brush technique that so many are doing right now with the Pottery Barn faux finish and using a broom to spread it all out. But I kind of wanted it to look a little more wood. So I started putting my top coat on 8 hours later, and it just lifted the glaze. It apparently, after 8 hours, was not dry, so I am a little panicked here and trying to blend it all in. Well, that didn't work. It actually just created it to be even more streaky. So I added some, and I forgot to film it, Au Natural gel stain made from Dixie Belle to the original stain and put it over the top, but it made it creamy and blended. So now I let it sit for a full 24 hours and went back in with my top coat again. Now I'm sanding the top coat to do more layers. I repeated this 4 times of 4 layers of top coat. No lifting. It's fantastic now. Howard's Feed and Wax is one of the final steps. I love to condition these drawers. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? And they're so dry. They just perk right up. The hardware is on. I did line some drawers as well. And there it is. Can you believe this is that abandoned in a barn piece of furniture? And now it's just a stunner. I lined the top drawers just because I had replaced one of them and it just didn't quite coordinate or match. But there it is. Like and follow for more.